I still remember the sound of the lock clicking behind me, not because it was loud, but because in that moment I realized my daughter-in-law had just locked me out of the home my husband built with his own hands. And the worst part? She smiled while doing it. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Margaret," she said, folding her arms like I was some stranger standing at her door. "You don't belong here anymore." I looked down at the 2 garbage bags sitting beside my feet. 38 years of memories reduced to old sweaters, photo albums, and medicine bottles. But what she didn't know was that my husband had been keeping a secret from everyone for over 10 years. A secret that would change everything before the week was over. So if you think family betrayal hurts, wait until you hear what happened next. 3 months earlier, my life still felt normal. My husband Richard and I had lived in that little white house since 1986. It wasn't fancy. The kitchen tiles were cracked, the porch leaned slightly to the left, and every winter the pipes made strange noises. But it was ours. Richard used to joke that the house had more personality than most people, and honestly, he wasn't wrong. Every wall carried a memory. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, the pencil marks measuring our son Daniel's height as he grew up. Then, cancer came. And cancer does not care how kind someone is. Within 8 months, the strongest man I had ever known became weak enough that I had to help him walk to the bathroom. But Richard never complained. Not once. Even during his final week in the hospital, he squeezed my hand and whispered, "Promise me one thing." I leaned closer. "Don't let anyone take advantage of you after I'm gone." At the time, I almost laughed. Who would take advantage of a 72-year-old widow? I had no idea he already knew the answer. After the funeral, everything changed. Daniel cried harder than anyone there. He held me tightly and promised, "Mom, you'll never be alone. I'll take care of you." And for a little while, I believed him. But grief changes people. Or maybe it reveals who they really are. His wife, Vanessa, started acting differently almost immediately. At first, it was little things. She complained about my cooking, moved my husband's photos out of the living room, started referring to the house as their place. Then, one afternoon, I overheard her talking on the phone in the kitchen. "She's old, Claire. She can barely keep up with herself. Daniel agrees it's probably time for assisted living." I froze in the hallway. Assisted living? No one had mentioned that to me. That night, I asked Daniel directly. He wouldn't look me in the eyes. "We're just discussing options, Mom." Options. Funny how people use gentle words when they're planning something cruel. Over the next few weeks, Vanessa became impossible to ignore. She criticized everything I did. If I watched television too loudly, she complained. If I forgot to wash a plate immediately, she sighed dramatically. If I sat quietly in the backyard too long, she asked if I was confused again. One day she even said, "You know, Margaret, houses this size are really wasted on old people." I stared at her. She smiled while sipping coffee like she hadn't just insulted my entire existence. But the moment that truly broke me happened on a rainy Tuesday evening. I came home from grocery shopping and my key no longer worked. At first, I thought I had the wrong key. Then, Vanessa opened the door halfway, just halfway, like I was dangerous. "You should have called first," she said coldly. My stomach dropped. What happened to the lock? "We changed them." I laughed nervously. "You changed them? Without telling me?" Daniel finally appeared behind her, avoiding eye contact again. Vanessa answered for him. "We think it's best if you stay somewhere else for a while." Somewhere else. I looked at my own son, the little boy I stayed awake with during fevers, the child I worked double shifts to feed after Richard lost his job years ago, and now he couldn't even defend me. "Daniel?" I whispered. He rubbed his forehead, Mom, please don't make this emotional, don't make this emotional, as if being thrown out of your own home was supposed to feel casual. Then Vanessa placed 2 trash bags outside the door. My clothes, my medication, my family albums, like I was garbage being taken to the curb. And then they shut the door in my face. That night, I slept on my friend Helen's couch. I barely slept at all. My chest hurt from crying quietly into a blanket so Helen wouldn't hear me. Around 2 a.m., I remembered something strange Richard once told me. If anything ever happens, call Mr. Bennett. At the time, I assumed he meant legal paperwork, but suddenly, those words wouldn't leave my mind. The next morning, I found an old business card hidden inside Richard's desk drawer. Thomas Bennett, attorney at law. My hands shook as I called the number. An older man answered immediately, and the second I said Richard's name, he went silent. Then he said something that made my entire body freeze. I've been wondering when you'd call. An hour later, I sat across from Mr. Bennett in a quiet office smelling of old paper and coffee. He opened a thick folder and adjusted his glasses. Margaret, he said carefully, your husband made arrangements years ago because he feared this exact situation. I blinked. What do you mean? Mr. Bennett slid a document across the desk. The house was never transferred to Daniel. I stared at him, confused. But Richard said the house would stay in the family. It is, Mr. Bennett replied calmly. In your family. Then he explained everything. 10 years earlier, after hearing Vanessa complain about money and inheritance during a family dinner, Richard secretly changed the ownership structure of the house. The property was placed into a protected trust, and the sole controller of that trust was me. Not Daniel, not Vanessa, me. But that wasn't even the biggest shock. Mr. Bennett opened another folder. There's more. Inside were bank statements, property documents, and investment records I had never seen before. Richard had quietly invested money for years. Carefully, patiently. The total amount made my mouth go dry, nearly $1.8 million. I covered my mouth in disbelief. My husband, the same man who repaired old lawnmowers for neighbors and wore $20 shoes, had secretly built a fortune. And nobody knew. Especially not Vanessa. Mr. Bennett leaned forward. Your husband left very specific instructions. He handed me a sealed envelope. On the front, written in Richard's handwriting, were 6 words, for Margaret when she needs strength. My vision blurred with tears as I opened it. Inside was a letter. My darling Maggie, if you are reading this, then unfortunately my fears came true. I knew Vanessa valued comfort more than family, and I worried Daniel was too weak to stand against her. So I made sure you would never depend on anyone. The house is yours. The savings are yours. And most importantly, your dignity is yours. Do not let guilt control you. You spent your whole life protecting others. Now it is time to protect yourself. Love forever, Richard. I broke down crying right there in the office. Not because of the money, but because even after death, that man was still taking care of me. 3 days later, Vanessa was drinking wine in my kitchen when someone knocked at the door. She opened it confidently, until she saw 2 police officers standing there beside Mr. Bennett. According to Helen, the color drained from Vanessa's face almost instantly, because Mr. Bennett calmly explained that they had illegally removed the legal homeowner from her property. Not theirs, mine. And things got even worse for them. Since the trust legally protected the home, Daniel and Vanessa had no claim to it whatsoever. None. They were ordered to leave immediately. Vanessa started screaming. She manipulated him. She's lying. This house belongs to Daniel, but paperwork does not care about tantrums, and neither do police officers. Daniel tried calling me over and over that evening, 32 missed calls. Then came the voicemail. Mom, please call me back. We can explain. Explain what? How easily they threw me away. How quickly greed erased love? No, some things don't deserve explanations. A week later, I walked back into my home. My home. The sunlight hit the hallway exactly the way it always had in the mornings. For a moment, I could almost hear Richard humming while fixing something in the garage. But the strangest feeling wasn't victory, it was peace. Because for the first time in months, I no longer felt unwanted. I donated half of Richard's hidden savings to cancer research in his name. Then I repaired the porch he always worried about fixing. And finally, after years of putting everyone else first, I booked a trip to Italy. Somewhere Richard and I always dreamed of seeing together. Before leaving, I received one final letter from Daniel. Not an apology, a request. He needed money. I stared at the paper for a long time before quietly throwing it away, because sometimes the hardest lesson a parent must learn is that love does not mean allowing people to destroy you. And sometimes the people who think they've won everything discover far too late that they were never truly entitled to anything at all. So tell me, what would you have done in my situation?